So hello everyone, thank you for joining today's webinar, Swipe Right, Stay Safe, How Dating Apps Keep Members Safe Online and in Real Life. We're going to have a lively discussion today about safety and online dating. A little housekeeping before we get started. We're going to go ahead and collect questions throughout the webinar. You can use the Zoom question feature, and if we have time at the end, we'll address them. If not, then we will send them out in an email afterward. So with that, let's go ahead and introduce our panelists. First up, we have Simon Corbett. Simon is the founder of Global Dating Insights, the industry's only independent editorial news service. GlobalDatingInsights.com's news, features, analysis, opinion, and information regarding the online dating industry play a vital role in informing and educating executives within the industry. And it's been around for over 6 years now. Simon's position as an active observer of the industry over the years places him in a unique position. He can see the trends across each dating app and knows the hopes and fears of the executive steering the ship. And Simon is joining us from London today.
I am. Hello there. Thank you. Good afternoon.
Awesome. Then we have Lucia Stacy. Lucia is the VP of Community of Hinge. She's been at Hinge for over 5 years and has had the opportunity to work on a wide range of projects, most recently launching the community department. Lucia brings an operator's perspective to the conversation. Her responsibilities over community at Hinge place her directly in the thick of things. She'll share the strategies and tactics Hinge uses to protect the safety of members. And she's joining us from New York City.
Hi.
Hey. And then, hey guys, I'm Katie Zickelman. I'm the head of product and client services here at Spectrum Labs, joining you from San Francisco. So we've got quite a global team today and quite a global audience. So let's go ahead and dive in. There was a recent TED Talk released in which Eli Pariser drew a comparison of online social media to physical urban spaces where communities gather. And he challenged online platforms to learn from urban planners in thriving towns and cities in order to create trustworthy online communities. I think there's a parallel between this and what's happening with the online dating community. With more and more people joining the world of online dating, total size of which is expected to reach almost 40 million users by 2022. I'd like to explore how we protect these users from the harmful behaviors they see online, such as sexual harassment, solicitation, and more, in the same way we would for an in-real-life scenario. So Simon, what are you seeing today in terms of online safety across the dating industry, and how has this changed over the years?
Sure. So health and safety of dating users is obviously absolutely key. It's of paramount importance, and it's a pleasure to be talking about these sorts of topics today, which I think can only be of a huge amount of help for the entire industry as a whole, so everyone can learn. I think there's a number of things. I think in terms of tracking a range of metrics that from users, dating companies do this in a number of ways, from formal complaints to the tone of social media discussions. And our experience has shown that sometimes users don't always bring up their concerns in exactly the way dating companies may think they will. A lot of bad experiences can sometimes go unreported if complaints procedures isn't clear. Low levels of complaints could be due to the fact that the site's doing really well, or it could be because users find it easier just to unmatch with people. So I think there's a whole range of things. I guess in terms of stopping some of the awful behaviour, there's a number of technical measures that we're seeing in the industry to sort of weed out scammers and catfishing, whether it's looking at IP addresses or running photo checks. So there's a broad range of things like that some of the best dating companies are doing at the moment. And I think it should be applauded, some of the software and the technology that's out there at the moment that, you know, is helping with kind of content moderation and just making sure these scams are absolutely kept to a minimum. We're all here for the industry, and making sure we can strike a balance between users being safe and happy, but without being intrusive into what they're doing, I think is key.
Absolutely. And Lucia, let's talk about how you keep your users safe, starting with how you set the right expectations on Hinge so users know what's acceptable and then enforce those.
Yeah, so on Hinge, we basically say that we are the dating app that has been designed to be deleted. And so we not only have relatively rigorous terms of service that ask that not only are you abiding by relatively obvious rules like not being abusive or obscene, but that you are mission aligned. Part of being part of our community is saying that you are using the app for the purpose of deleting it. This means we want engaged, respectful community members who are looking to develop a connection meaningful enough to delete the app for. So we have, in addition to the terms of service that you sign up for, we have some like warnings that can go out from time to time to sort of try and keep our community generally aligned. So even if you're on Hinge and you're saying something like, hey, full disclosure, I'm looking for a no strings attached hookup or something like that, you might get a warning from us that reminds you of our mission and tells you that Hinge just isn't right for you right now and you should come back when you're ready for something meaningful. And so by kind of interjecting our mission at various junctures in the user experience, we're able to sort of like curate the type of community that we want to maintain on the platform.
That's awesome. And I think kind of related to that, how do you encourage even more of that positive behavior or really kind of get rid of the negative beyond just the warnings?
How do we get rid of bad actors?
Yeah.
So we have a lot of different approaches to getting rid of bad actors. One of the benefits of being part of Match Group is basically getting access to a network of industry-leading automations, manual moderation, review tools, and systems that allow us to prevent, detect, and remove people who are engaging in any kind of inappropriate behavior or could present a danger to our users. I could walk you through a few examples of kind of how that plays out in real time. So for instance, one of the major things that Hinge relies on is a combination of not just internal tools, but primarily machine learning to identify bad actors. And so I'll speak sort of vaguely because I'm somewhat paranoid that, you know, they hear these things and then try and evolve their systems to beat ours. But our algorithms that are identifying and finding bad actors are utilizing a lot of different signals. And so the way that might play out in real life is we could take a user and say, okay, this user is liking every single person in their feed. What is the likelihood that that's a good user? They're possibly a good user. Let's look at what their gender is. Are they female? Okay, what is the likelihood that there's a female who's liking every single person in their feed? It's a very, very low percent. I don't make the rules, I just read the data. And so in that, we've identified an atypical behavioral trend there. And so unless this is just a really, really open-minded person, it's more than likely an actor with some kind of nefarious motive who's trying to cast a wide net so that they can match with as many people as possible. And then once we have that initial signal, we can layer in other signals. So I won't go into detail on the specifics of the combinations of those, but that is like one of the things that we're working with Spectrum on, is using NLP as one of the signals so that we can kind of surface those people.
I would add as well, from our perspective, that we see a lot of dating sites running onboarding messages, whether this comes as a sort of a pledge or a lighter note about how they expect the community to behave and interact. And I think the way that Hinge does it is absolutely excellent. The wider brand message of some of the apps, I think, is really important here as well. There's several that not only throughout their site and apps and onboarding, but throughout the media, whenever you get the CEOs talking in the press, whether it's business press or finance press, they just repeatedly hit home some of these key messages about how they'd like their community to behave, or the sort of site they are. And I think that narrative and that brand messaging that is just consistently communicated to audiences is really key as well, just in terms of making sure you've got positive and great engagement.
Yeah, that's a good point. So Simon, I want to come back to something that you were saying earlier on, which is that It's known that many users on dating apps don't report. So, Lucia, something I know you're passionate about. How do you figure out just how many bad actors are out there if people are underreporting?
I think it's very difficult. Is the first thing. There's all in an industry this size, you're always going to get some bad actors, sadly, and I think it can be very difficult for people to report them. I think the onboarding process and getting when people are on the sites and then getting them to engage, it's obviously, for some of the businesses there can be a tension. They want people onboarded and using the app as much as possible in a very light and straightforward way. But some people sometimes go a step too far. So I think having like a behavioral pledge, the terms and conditions, email verification, just as many of these things as possible to help make sure people are acting and behaving in the right way is absolutely crucial. I guess honestly, it's never going to be 100% of the time. You're always going to get one or two that aren't ideal, but the sorts of technology that's out there these days, such as Spectrum, is so fantastic and just adds so much value to this community.
Yeah, I think underreporting is definitely an issue, and reporting in general just doesn't act as a great proxy for community health. In terms of underreporting, I do think there's a few things that brands can do or that apps can do to kind of productionize the solution. So one of the things we have on our roadmap that is coming out next year is that we found anecdotally what a lot of our moderators were telling us was that they would see really egregious interactions between, they would find a bad actor on the platform and that person would have actually been just blocked instead of reported. And so what we wanted to do was introduce the reporting menu as part of the unmatch interstitial. So when you say you're going to unmatch someone, you'll have the full menu of options. It'll say at the top, like, I'm just not interested anymore. But then below that, it will provide other options, like they sent an inappropriate message, they sent an inappropriate picture, a whole suite of potential bad behaviors so that we're able to kind of meet the user where they are when they're at that point in the experience. And then as far as actually because reporting is such a poor proxy, because there are not only a lot of underreports, but there's a lot of erroneous reports, it's really, really difficult to kind of monitor community health. I think Hinge has a relatively unique approach here. So we basically have something that we call the measurement sample. And so a measurement sample is basically, it provides us with a snapshot of our community in a given day. And so to derive it, each month we take a statistically significant number of users. I'll say purely, for example, like 10,000. And we have a moderation team manually label each and every user as good or bad. And then if they're bad, we have them label what type of bad they are, what the violation of terms of service was. And then we look at how many of those bad actors had already been caught through our existing removal measures. And so we're able to calculate not only our overall bad actor rate by taking the number of bad actors that we caught divided by the number of users in the measurement sample, but we're able to drill down and find the live bad actor rate. So we're able to project the percent of bad actors that are actually currently live on Hinge. And then we actually have a dual purpose for this measurement sample, because whenever I tell people that, they're like, that's a really, really labor intensive way to derive one metric. And so we actually also use it to train our algorithm to discern good actors from bad ones, because in order to understand what constitutes a bad actor, our algorithm also needs to have a comprehensive understanding of what constitutes a good one. I always kind of compare it to the Passenger song, like you only need the light when it's burning low, only miss the sun when it starts to snow. You need good actors to understand what the bad actors look like. And so not only are we able to get a snapshot of what our community health looks like, but we're able to use that snapshot to train an algorithm to find bad actors in the future.
I love that approach. And I'm curious, Simon, have you seen kind of across the industry others doing something similar, or are there any blockers that you might anticipate that others would struggle in order to bring that to light?
Yeah, we've seen a number of different dating brands act in different ways in terms of discouraging negative engagement. And some have got a sort of a multiple strike system, or a blanket ban on certain types of responses or certain types of behavior. We've seen that seems to have worked quite well. Some have even gone a step further, and we've seen public shaming of some of the worst offenders on social media platforms. Bumble have done that, for example. It's an extreme case, but it's helped really position them as a values-driven company that cares about their members. So yes, there's a number of different ways that certainly are not without their challenges, though.
Absolutely. So I'd like to switch gears for a second, because we brought up kind of how moderators get involved in this. And there's been a lot of buzz lately around digital wellness, and especially the toll that reviewing negative content can have on human moderators. So Lucia, I'd like to start with your thoughts on this. How do you ensure your own team of community moderators stay well and also able to protect your users?
Yeah, so our moderators are the gatekeepers of our community, and that was something we really didn't want to outsource to a BPO. We wanted to have those moderators be like full-time Hinge employees who are committed to our company values as well as like our greater community values. And so part of that is just really bringing them into the fold and making sure they're bought into our mission. And that gives them more of, I think, you read a lot about content moderators in the news and just like what an awful job it is, which is very true. On the flip side of that, there's the moment where you as the moderator witness a bad behavior and you get to be the person that removes that person from the community. And because we're part of Match Group, like for the most part, removes them from all of the dating apps in that brand. Depending on the severity of the offense. And so that's a pretty satisfying moment. And so we try to really like encourage and empower our moderators at those times. And then in addition to that, we recognize that there's the potential for, a difficult processing of their day-to-day work. And so we provide all of our full-time moderators with free therapy. They have access to like wellness stipends, they have full benefits, and they work remotely, but they are New York based, so they're welcome to come into our office anytime they want. So they come in and hang out with the team. And so they're really just part of the Hinge family and really like some of the most important employees we have, because they're the people who are determining who stays and who goes from our community.
I was going to add as well, I think mental health is a huge issue around some of these individuals who do very tough jobs on a day-to-day basis and who've got to watch an awful lot of content that may have been flagged. So I think the things that you guys are doing in terms of therapy and wellness should be absolutely applauded. And of course, detection software and technology is a key part of that as well, that can help and support and empower moderators and can be absolutely beneficial to the businesses, to the moderators, to staffing, etc. So yeah, I think it's a great balance and such a critical part of this industry we're in.
Awesome. And Simon, I'd like to double click into that a little bit. You said that there's a role for technology to play in there. What do you envision that looking like?
Well, I guess with a number of dating sites, using and utilizing technology, can be so important in this area. So, for example, we've seen examples of females on sites, at casual sites or at mainstream sites that will typically approve, say, 30% or so of the people they're looking at. And then we have other examples where we see data where they're approving 99% of all males. Well, the ones that are approving 99% of all males are very, very likely to be, sadly, scam accounts or someone with ulterior motives. So I think technology that can be used in these instances to, just keep everyone safe and to be as active and involved in these dating apps as possible is just crucial.
Great. Lucia, do you have thoughts on that one?
Yeah, I mean, from both a business perspective and the wellness of our moderator perspective, we want to limit the amount of people that they have to review. Ideally, they're only seeing the really difficult to determine ones, which is why we're so focused on developing really robust machine learning to be able to sort of take care of the brunt of the bad actors so that that doesn't actually have to go under moderator review. We would rather have our moderators kind of reviewing the less egregious activity and making decisions about, like, is this person well-intentioned enough to be on Hinge? Are they looking for just a hookup, or are they looking for something more? Like, that's the kind of thing we really want to sort of drive our moderators to be focusing on, rather than and have like automations and machine learning take care of the worst of the worst.
That makes sense. So, well, we don't want to give any bad actors any ideas here. Can you share some past experiences you've had dealing with disruptive behaviors and how they were dealt with, either observing or being a part of it yourself?
Like on Hinge, you mean?
Sure.
Yeah, obviously you mean on Hinge. Yeah, so there are a number of types of bad actors, and so we really try and target our strategies around these specific types, largely because that helps us train the machine learning algorithms to understand different behavioral patterns. So an example I can give is that one of the big problems in the dating industry in general, and I'm sure Simon can speak to this to some degree as well, is romance scammers. And so it's almost like an industrial complex at this point, in the same way that Russia has like troll farms. We've seen a lot of these scammer farms where there are people who are using dating apps, especially dating apps like Hinge or like eHarmony or something, where the focus is really meaningful long-term relationships, to come on and try and solicit less internet savvy people into giving them their information. And so we define a romance scammer as anyone who's trying to trick or scam users into providing money or personal details. But they are highly strategic. They will, they'll start a conversation. They'll be very romantic. They'll suggest they take things offline. They'll talk on Gmail. They'll be talking every day for 2 weeks. And again, this is usually with someone who is really not familiar with the internet, typically older users who did not grow up as part of the internet generation. And then all of a sudden one day they'll say, I've been in a car crash, my son is injured, and I don't have access to money. Can you please send me some? And so one of the things we really try to do is not only like prevent those conversations from happening in the first place, but is to make sure that we're notifying users who may have matched with someone like that, lest they did exchange contact information, so that we can nip that right in the bud.
I would add to that as well and say, unfortunately, we're very familiar with romance scams and troll farms and other things like this. It sadly still does make up a decreasing, but it still does make up a part of the industry. And I just think the better the detection software and the investment of kind of content moderators just remains absolutely key. The industry continues to grow at a pace, depending on what sites for news and information you're reading. The industry is predicted to be about 9 to 10 billion this year, and it's fertile ground for some of the bad actors, sadly, and it's a problem that's probably not going to go away. So I think for any of the dating brands out there, just investing in this technology just to protect and look after users is just so critical, because the number of stories out there of these romance scams, exactly as you described, unfortunately seem to keep popping up, and the more we can all do to decrease those, the better.
For sure. And I think their strategies evolve constantly as well. And so that's one of the things that makes NLP or machine learning in general really important, because it's able to adapt and sort of like grow and evolve as their strategies evolve, versus just implementing sort of like brute force automations, because as soon as you do that, they'll change the keywords they're using, or they'll change their script, they'll change their target demographic. And so it's really important to make sure that you're being proactive and not just defensive when it comes to all bad actors, but in particular romance scammers.
Absolutely, here, and we, I mean, here at Global Dating Insights, you would honestly be amazed at some of the messages we will sometimes get through Facebook or some of our other channels, where some of these troll farms or people that are involved in this awful behaviour have seen the word dating in our site, and without even realising that we do news and reports and insight conferences, they'll think we're a dating site. So we've seen a lot of it firsthand, and it just rams home to us how important this is, that the apps and the dating brands out there take it so seriously, like you guys do.
Absolutely. And I think having GDI as well is really important, because it brings light to this kind of scammer. And it's really important that people know about them.
Thank you. Yeah, absolutely. We do our best to sort of educate the industry and the community and the executives within it about some of the problems that are out there. And it's such a wonderful industry we all work in, and everyone's got so many wonderful stories of why they worked in it and people that they've got together and all the rest of it. That's why I'm sure we all got into it. But no, it's a pleasure to try and weed out some of the small minority that aren't here for the right reasons.
Great. Well, yeah, thank you both so much. So I think I want to wrap it up with one question from both of you. And that is, what advice do you have for other dating apps and brands who are trying to tackle this important trust and safety challenge?
I would say, from our perspective, we see what a lot of brands are doing, and there's definitely some super proactive ones like Hinge, and there's some that could maybe do a little bit more. I would say, if I had to give one lesson or one bit of advice, I would say just please keep investing, being aware, being mindful. I think, as Lucia said, these some of these organisations who are in it for the wrong reasons, some of these bad actors, they develop, they're learning, they're not going to stop. So I would say please keep investing, please be mindful, and just please try and keep on top of this, because it's a wonderful industry. There are some vulnerable people in it, and the more we can continually all do, the better.
Yeah, my advice basically echoes that, insofar as I would say make it a priority. That would be my advice to other brands, is to really make it a priority, both like a business priority, a resource priority, financial priority. A lot of the time, especially with newer brands, trust and safety comes as an afterthought because you're focused on growth, which is reasonable, but you want to be proactive. You don't want to be in a situation where you're playing defense, because you can just get absolutely overrun with bad actors. That potential exists, and making it a priority ahead of time is really like the right approach.
Yeah, completely agree more. Couldn't agree more.
Great. Well, yes, thank you both so much. And thank you to our incredible panelists for today's discussions. Thank you, everyone, for joining. Feel free to check out our website, getspectrum.io, regularly for upcoming events and webinars. Next up in December, we'll be discussing how illegal weapons are sold online. Keep an eye out for that. But thank you, everyone, so much for joining, and we'll send out some follow-ups later.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you. It's been a pleasure. Thank you.